So welcome everybody to Navigating a Time of Crisis, Conversations of Change. Today I have with me Olivia Nichols from the Northwest catchment of Odyssey. But before we begin, I just would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we are holding this interview, but also the land where you might be watching it from, to pay respects to elders past, present and emerging, and give, I guess, special significance or special consideration to Indigenous people at this time, not just by virtue of their vulnerability, but also by virtue of the wisdom that they can share in how to navigate this. So this interview series is all about giving people from across the AOD sector and other sectors an opportunity to share how they're navigating this crisis, how they're responding as a human, and how they're responding as a representative of a service. And yeah, so people can learn, we can I guess have that sense of connection and that sense of the human throughout all of this as well. So I'll let Olivia give herself a bit of an introduction, and then we'll jump into the questions.
Yeah, hi. I'm Olivia. I am Olivia Nichols, and I am the clinical consultant for Odyssey in the Northwest. So it's not residential treatment, it is community-based treatment. We do all of intake, we do assessments which is shared amongst the other consortiums in the area. We have pretty much a full suite of outreach staff, CRC, overdose prevention, counselling, and non-residential withdrawal support. And it's a pretty big team across multiple sites. So it's been an interesting world. I run some programs, and I also have clinical oversight, and I also do the clinical reviews for each person that gets assessed by us.
So everything but residential, literally everything but residential. Yeah. Cool. So that means you'll be able to give us, I guess, a bit of a diversity of views and diversity of what you're doing to manage what's happening with that range of services you provide. Yeah. If you're happy to jump into the first question, I'll just ask so people watching understand, but we're just keen to understand what you're currently doing for yourself, for your staff, for the people that you serve, and just your organisation more generally, to manage this current situation safely, humanely, and with an element of dignity for everybody involved.
Yeah. So I don't remember a time that we've been so busy. And with a changing landscape that changes by day rather than by week, by month, by year, it's been, I guess it's been a game of catch up pretty much. We are currently just not doing face-to-face appointments pretty much ever, apart from really vulnerable or at risk or complex people, where we will do the odd face-to-face observing, social distancing, extreme social distancing, and also making sure that we look after sanitation and those sorts of things. We're not transporting people in our vehicles like outreach would normally do, taking people to detox and those sorts of things. And we're not doing non-residential withdrawals per se, because it's not safe to not go see a client every day for our nurses and be able to do alcohol withdrawal scale, as well as check out the general health, as well as, you know, count those Valiums left in the boxes of Valium that they need for withdrawal, particularly alcohol withdrawal. So it's just not safe for us to do that. So we've had to change the way that we do things. We zoom in on doctor's appointments and those sorts of things, and we also do sort of reductions. We've been funneling people into a reduction rather than a withdrawal. So that would look like some significant support a couple of times a week around what it looks like to reduce, and reducing slowly most of the time. That's the way we're keeping our outreach and non-residential withdrawal people safe. We've also been asked to support more heavily clients that are on wait lists for detoxes. And so basically what we call a step up. And certainly we work closely with Regen. So with Current Place, we're involved in stepping up most of their clients that are on their wait. And the purpose of that too is that there's a lot of people on the wait list, and if they don't engage in treatment, then or contact beforehand, oftentimes you can assume that they may not rock up to their appointment, to their detox, and or perhaps not stay. So we know that that attending your detox day is super important. There's not a lot of detox beds out there. Things have changed a little bit. We need to make sure that people are screened as well for COVID going into that space. We also know that some detoxes, and certainly Odyssey House TC, have asked people to be in detox for 10 to 14 days, which would serve the quarantine period, but also they only admit people in blocks. So they've got decreased capacity. They're admitting people in blocks. And basically, so it's a rolling 14-day kind of thing, rather than, you admit Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, something like that. That doesn't work anymore. Because we want to keep our rehab beds open. A lot of places have shut down, and for a lot of different reasons. So I guess at the moment, we're trying our best to keep our outreach staff, engaged, but also safe. It's a bit trickier for our CRCs because we've been able to boom non-resi with a whole lot of step-up support, whereas CRC, suddenly our catchment is massive, and suddenly they don't have to spend 4 hours, 5 hours a day in the car. So that means that figuring out what their role looks like has been an interesting ride, particularly as people who are referred into CRC tend to be a little bit more disconnected, less engaged, and part of that work is certainly about a slow engagement in order to link people into treatment. So one of the staff members said that he calls it couch reach, which I think is a good way to keep it light. So as for our counsellors, they're not minding the phone contact as much as we thought they might, and as much as they thought they might. A lot of people are picking up the phone. They say that they're feeling busier than they have been before because, it's easier to pick up the phone often. It's also finding that a lot of forensic referrals quite like to not require the effort to come into an appointment. So some of them are picking up a little bit more. So at the moment, the counsellors, whilst they're safe and no one's really doing face-to-face with the counsellors unless absolutely necessary, then what that looks like is a very different workflow for them. A really different workflow. We're doing assessments over the phone now, and we haven't done that with community clients before. And the amount of information that people are eliciting is over the phone is astounding. But of course, talking on the phone using a different medium, I think you have to concentrate a little bit more. You need to really listen and really respond. So it's probably a little bit more tiring, people were saying, than face-to-face contact, because you've got all of those cues available to you. You can see facial expression, distress, body language, all of those sorts of things. And now we need to kind of understand people's responses over the phone in order to have a therapeutic interaction. So I think that counsellors are finding themselves very, very busy at the moment. They've had a lot of, I think staff have put a lot of pressure on themselves to be up to speed very quickly with the new tech and the new requirements, and be competent phone counsellors and all of those sorts of things. And certainly our message has been to slow down. We expect you to become proficient, but not tomorrow, and certainly not yesterday, and to be kind to yourself, and to make sure that we don't expect you to be all that for a few weeks. You need to be kind to yourself, and we need to be kind to you as well. What we're finding too is some people the people with big commutes to work are loving it because they've got this extra time, but people who are not,
or wherever the office,
people who don't have big commutes find it difficult to get that balance, because it's time that they'd normally kind of not have anyway. So people were talking about, you know, if you've got some more time, you can take the dog for a walk in the morning where they'd normally be on a train for an hour and a half, you know, those sorts of things. But what we're really trying to get people to do is to actually take their breaks, and you structure your day like a work day at work. Most people, you know, they grab, certainly me, I'm a bit naughty. I grab my yeah, a little bit. I grab my brekkie, it was nice and quiet, and I open up my computer and I start to work with a piece of toast in one hand and the other hand on the keyboard. And then so taking breaks is super important, and taking the breaks and doing something as well. So if you can get out during the day, then that's the best medicine. Or just to do something different. Remembering that you have breaks, you get, I think it's across the board, 10 to 15 minutes paid break in the morning, 10 to 15 minutes paid break in the afternoon, and half an hour to 45 minutes for lunchtime. And I think that we need to make sure we take those breaks, because a lot of people would be going into the kitchen, picking up a cup of tea and bringing it back to the computer and calling that a break. Well, it's only, yeah, exactly. And that's, you know, you time that and it takes 2.5 minutes.
Yeah.
So it's super important that people keep their breaks. I think that in terms of safety, what we've done at work is we're kind of creating a rostering on system. So at the moment, we normally have 30 or 40 people in our building in an open plan office. At the moment, we have got 5 people.
Yeah.
And they're spread across, and each of those are in their own offices. So we consider them safe. Yeah. We've also increased our cleaning. That's super important for people to know. And we've, you know, put sticky tape on the floor at reception to say, you know, this is 2 meters away. Please don't approach any closer. It feels weird to us because it doesn't feel human. You know, that it really doesn't feel human to not shake someone's hand when they say goodbye, you know, to sit 1.5, 2 meters away from somebody for a shorter period of time, to be asking people to squirt their hands and then shooting a temperature gun at their forehead when they come in. So, you know, all of those things just feel like it dehumanizes our work a little bit. I think that preparing people for their appointments has also been interesting, you know, making sure, because people are at home with family and kids and all of that sort of stuff. Make sure you've got a private area, you've put that time aside, you know, Peppa Pig for the kids if you need it, those sorts of things. It's really important to set that up. We also need to set up a little bit of, and our staff is great because we're really lucky. And so as a running joke, I just say, make sure you've got your pants on when you do Zoom, because if you stand up and you've just got your undies on, it's not going to be a good look.
It's so funny. It's true. It's true.
It's true.
It's true. It's like newsreaders. Top up, you know, waist up is fine. Don't worry. Don't even look at the bottom.
No, that's right. So, you know, just those kind of funny things is great. We have staff that will find working from home really difficult. And that's because they haven't got the space, or they have got children around and those sorts of things. I'm one of those people, so I'm mixing it up between the office and at home. I've certainly found it a little bit tricky at home because I have a fabulous 12-year-old who knows that I'm at home but is adjusting to me being unavailable while I'm at home. And that's really tricky, you know, managing that. You know, I did a 3-hour Zoom meeting yesterday and she woke up in the middle of it and needed breakfast. You know, and she needs that. She's a bit, you know, anxious about everything, and she needs that looking after side of things. So, you know, that's a real juggle that's real for so many people in this workforce. I don't know, I'm a bit anxious about when she returns to schooling, what that looks like for work, because kids who are probably year 9 and younger will need a lot of assistance with it's basically homeschooling.
It's homeschooling, yeah.
It's homeschooling. So what that looks like for our workers, we don't know. I think that's going to be an evolving space, but I'm not sure what the answer is there. If anyone's got any fabulous ideas, then let me know. I'd prefer that she doesn't disengage from school and watch YouTube only during that time, but we will see what we can see.
There's an education in that, I'm sure. I don't know whether it's the right one, but there's definitely an education in YouTube.
There is. You can only watch this, this and this. So we've been allowing people to come here as they see fit if it's safe to do so in the office. And we carefully manage that. But we've got vastly reduced numbers at work. We're cleaning, we're making sure we're observing social distancing and hand sanitisation. It's very weird to do meetings when you're normally all sitting together and suddenly you're all on site but in different offices. That's kind of really weird, but seems to be working. We're really lucky in that we already had a mobile workforce. Everybody had the right tech. They already had good quality laptops and good quality phones, which meant that the stress of that has decreased. I know that in a hospital services, community-based services attached to hospitals have struggled with that because they use desktop computers and they're linked into very secure, I guess, computer-based systems that are not normally transferable to your home. So that's been a real trial for lots of staff. And I know that too, the absence of printers means that you cannot send letters to clients as you would, or scan things and those sorts of things. So in terms of supporting staff around that, we're lucky because our intake will still sit in our office most of the time. We've got 2. So they may rotate because we prefer both of them not to get knocked out by this thing and not be able to run our intake. So they're happy to send off faxes for our staff. They're also happy to print things out and send them out as well. So we're incredibly lucky in that way. We're really super lucky. We've had to redo entirely a consent form to make sure it's verbal and that we can get it signed and electronically signed if needed for those people that can't print things out, because getting that information is super important and we can't just not do consent forms moving into the future. So doing some quirky things like that has kind of been interesting. Very quickly, we created a very big resources folder. And that has everything, including pretty much up-to-date information about AOD services, so understanding how we can refer in, if at all. Also, anything you want to know about, because family violence services have put out communiques about what the challenges are and how to work with people in terms of the COVID-19. We're expecting that intake will field more calls that are around crisis because people are less supported now. And they're forced to be in stressful, crowded situations with people who they may not have a positive relationship with. So, with the move with mental health services not doing outreach sometimes at all or just occasionally for assessments, those sorts of things, we expect to see a bigger flow in from them because people will become, we're forecasting that people will become more unwell as the support structure changes. We're also expecting to see a spike in family violence concerns and risk. And we think that that's probably going to be around people who normally didn't have to stay home together at stressful time. That people will feel trapped and people are losing their employment. And we know that loss of employment is one of the big risk factors for people experiencing family violence. So we expect that we will be managing more of that, and we've certainly seen that happen. recently, not so much at intake level, but with people who are already established clients of our service. So that can be quite distressing. So the way that we're managing that space for existing clients is actually to make sure that we do plenty of case conferences with management involved, creating some clear pathways or at least assessments, utilising the intermediate MARAM risk assessment as well, and heavily utilising the Family Violence Information Sharing Scheme and Child Information Sharing Scheme. In the end, all I can say is make sure you've got stacks of support, or if you're a manager, provide stacks of support to those staff who are managing that, because it's going to be an anxious time for them as well. And we need some smart solutions, and the solutions aren't necessarily there. So we're just, at the moment, I can't say maybe blundering through all of this, not making a whole lot of mistakes yet, but learning a lot as we go along. It's super important to do that. So it's a kind of a mixture between how do we support clients that are at risk or complex or vulnerable, and all of our other clients, as well as supporting our staff to do the best work they can with the least stress that they can kind of endure. And that's kind of where we're at in terms of keeping staff kind of emotionally safe as well. We've also started up a daily check-in and clinical review. So every morning we jump onto Microsoft Teams is what we use for that, and we talk together. We do clinical reviews, discuss tricky clients, and also do a check-in. It's super interesting to see that there's a mixture of people who love the check-in and find that connection really important, and others that find it a waste of time or a little bit distressing because they feel like they're getting put on the spot and those sorts of things. So it's really interesting, and it generally falls into the categories, it seems to, with counselling, are really desiring to be really connected, whereas outreach people are much more used to being independent. And already have some pretty good support structures there, because the work is more complex and there's more risk, so the support structure is already there. So it's interesting, we're evolving that space. It was really good to begin with, to start with that all of this week, because it was also a place that we could share information, make sure people were up to date all the time about where we're at as an organisation, but also sharing information about what other organisations are doing as well. I think the biggest thing that we can do is figure out what other people are doing as well. So at the moment, I'm lucky enough to be meeting weekly with all of the other consortium players in our Northwest, Southwest region. And that's began as my service is still doing face-to-face. Our service is doing work from home. We can't send out, letters. All of those sorts of things was more about this service is open, this service is not, this is what we're doing with our detox, all of those sorts of things. It started off looking like that. Now that there's less change, because things changed every 2 days pretty much. Now that there's less change, it's more about how do we support people in this changing environment. So we'll talk about trends and what other services are doing, and any clever ideas, but also things like SafeScript began 2 days ago. What does that look? How do we support clients? If alcohol's less available, then what do we do for our alcohol addicted people who are now at risk of coma, seizure and death, given that we can't do non-resi, face-to-face non-resi withdrawals, and doctors' capacity has decreased as well. So, looking at those things is really tricky. Also things like how to access long-acting buprenorphine is going to be a way to go, but people, and it will be cheaper and put the community at less risk too, because you don't have to go to the pharmacy all the time, and I think it's less costly, which is super important. And I know that OIT and NSPs are an absolute priority, but to tell you the truth, the availability of prescribers at the moment is limited.
Yeah.
And with people, we've had some people who say that heroin and opiates are no longer as available as they were a few weeks ago. They're having trouble getting supply. They're currently in withdrawal and they're trying to source some methadone or Suboxone. So that's going to be a trick moving forward. So they're the sorts of things that we're trying to kind of nut out all together. I don't think we have the answers. Particularly, we certainly don't have the answers, but if we work together, then maybe we can create some pathways for people who are in that situation.
Yeah.
It's been a really interesting space, actually, to have SafeScript and coronavirus kind of all happening at the same time. We're wondering what that will look like in terms of filling scripts and those sorts of things for medications that are seen to be risky medications. We won't see that probably for the next month when people start to need to fill their scripts and get turned away, because certainly, our experience is that many doctors and pharmacists are going to be risk averse in this space, and if they see someone's being doctor shopping or filling more prescriptions more regularly, they'll be more likely to turn somebody away rather than create a therapeutic response. Yeah, so I think that's going to be an interesting space, which means that we need to advocate. We need to find doctors that are good doctors and happy to prescribe a maintenance amount of benzos with slow tapering, which is what's usually required. But it's a frightening space for doctors because they don't want to lose they don't want to lose their registration.
That was an incredibly comprehensive answer. So thorough, and it sounds like Odyssey has just made some really positive changes. I mean, business as usual as much as possible, but we're not also keeping not just client wellbeing but staff wellbeing at the forefront. I think that's amazing. So, congratulations, well done.
Yeah.
And I love this idea of the shifting sands of what's important. I think you're right, that idea of having stabilised the organisation's effectiveness in this space. It's then moving to how to resolve some of these issues collectively. And I think just broadly, COVID has exposed many, many flaws in our variety of different systems. It is this probably moves into the last question. So I won't ask you to answer it right now, but it's that idea of, at this point, what opportunities are presented or what opportunities are possible that perhaps wouldn't have been previously. Yeah, that was amazing. I should say to people, I'll be putting Olivia's contact details in the bottom of the YouTube comments, I guess. So if you have any questions about anything that she's just spoken about or would like to hear more about what Odyssey is doing, then please make contact.
You'll also see there was a recent service update that included our service, and that was posted on Varda yesterday or the day before. So probably if you're seeking information about what's open, what's not, it's best to have a look at that rather than contact
not email Olivia.
Yeah. But yes.
Thank you for that. Just to clarify. You are not the only person that works at Odyssey. So the second question that I had was, and you spoke a little bit about that in terms of advocacy around GPs and doctors, but how can people, I guess, support you and what you're doing? Is there anything in terms of advocacy, resources, volunteering, donations, anything that if people felt they wanted to be able to make a contribution to what was happening, is there anything in that space or?
At the moment, in terms of making a contribution, we're finding that homeless people do not have phones.
Yeah.
And how do we provide, or don't have tech, or both, so we can't provide a service to that population, and they're a vulnerable, at-risk, complex population that we really need to prioritise.
Yeah.
So certainly in terms of phones, that's probably our biggest consumable that we'd like to.
You know what? I've got a couple of old phones, I reckon.
Yeah.
I'll send you away.
Just make sure you set it back to factory default and wipe all your stuff. Yeah.
And do you have an address for that?
Yeah, just 202 Nicholson Street in Footscray.
Cool.
Yeah. So that's certainly something that we're looking at. Yeah, and it's been useful to be able to have that. We like to remind clients that now they get a free 25 gig, I think, from Optus and Telstra for a little while, not for long. I think it's only for a month or something like that. But that means that they can do face-to-face. We need to remember to remind clients that doing Zoom or WhatsApp looks like it might be okay as well. I'm not sure, in terms of it's connected to a phone number rather than a social media account.
Correct. Yeah, correct.
So making sure that they know that that uses data. Yeah. Whereas the phone call, we make it and it doesn't cost the client anything.
Yeah. Okay, so phones. I'm on board.
Yeah, that would be great.
Amazing. Yeah, because that has been raised in a number of different forums that I've been involved in as well. Just how do we get this stuff to clients?
Yeah. We're also looking at going to set up a computer in one of our counselling rooms that will get cleaned thoroughly, but for the purposes of doing telehealth and those sorts of things with their doctors or other practitioners.
Yep, great. Amazing.
Yes.
And the final question is, notwithstanding the harm and the distress that has been caused by COVID, but with a focus on the positive reframe of that, how do you see this crisis potentially, or may already have, create opportunities for improving the collective condition and the experiences people have? Yeah.
So I think to begin with, staff are getting more tools in their belt. And that's always a wonderful thing. It was enforced. The AOD sector has been very slow at taking up telehealth or, those sorts of things and offering a diverse treatment option. So most of it's face-to-face assessments and those sorts of things, and that was considered gold standard.
Yeah.
But now we can offer so much more, and and a lot differently. And it's nice to be able to provide, to be able to say to a client, we can do it over the phone, or we can do it face to face, or we can do it remotely, and we can see each other while we do it. Which is a wonderful thing, and that just meant that it fast forwarded the AOD sector into that space.
Yeah.
And I think that that's only got to be a good thing, because people need flexible kind of responses.
Yeah.
I mean, it should also decrease the risk that is around, people who are intoxicated need to attend appointment and jump in their car.
Yeah. And
people who have children at home who can't attend an office for an appointment or are unwell. So there's all of those kind of things that can happen. Moving groups into a remote kind of space I think has been really interesting for each of the organisations that provide it. And some people provide regular phone contact or Zoom and those sorts of things. So I'm sure that there'll be lots of learnings that come out of that, because each organisation is not a replication of each other. They're doing very different things. And so the learnings that will come out of that will be fabulous, I think. I think that we're changing the clients are learning as well. So they're learning about how to engage differently in different mediums, which has got to be a good thing, because then they can figure out what they prefer. And then when this all blows over, then we'll be able to offer a different suite, a bigger suite of service delivery options, and they will be able to make an educated choice about what would suit them better. Yeah, amazing. Yeah, I think the adaptability, in terms of a positive reframe as well, the adaptability and flexibility of the sector, because I know the AOD sector has so quickly responded and in such a positive way to the current situation, and particularly the
extent of uncertainty around it all, and the willingness of people to change and adopt change, I think, which previously may not have happened. Not happened as quickly.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, you know, we are already seeing, I guess, the results of some of the opportunities, which is fantastic. Yeah.
It is good. It's exciting into the future. It's really hard right now, but it's moving towards business as usual, and then it's going to be a different business as usual.
But I think, you know, we're also learning that there are a range of different ways of doing things, and you know, the things that we thought were vital and important have shifted. So as I mentioned previously, this idea of COVID exposing things, you know, potentially for where the value lies, where the value really lies. Yeah,
absolutely. I think it's also been an opportunity as well, because some staff are going to find themselves less busy than others just because of the way that they were working before. For example, outreach staff are going to spend less time on the road, which will mean that we have an opportunity to give people portfolios. Yeah, cool. And actually to move forward with projects that we thought we knew were really important, but no one had a whole lot of time to give them. And that includes things like extending our RAP, which is our Aboriginal RAP program, perhaps to make it easier for Aboriginal people to access services, including coloured people. We've got all sorts of kind of plans underway that we can divvy up some projects if someone becomes quiet, and the purpose of that is to make sure people stay employed, because we are so lucky to be considered an essential service, and absolutely, to be able to retain our funding. It's a really big opportunity to have that happen.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Olivia. This has been, like, you've been amazing, everything that you've shared and everything that you're doing. So I for one, really, really appreciate your time and your openness and sharing everything. As I said, I will pop your email at the bottom of this so people can contact you, but to try not to, you know, there's this multitude of questions about things that other people can answer. Perhaps go to the Odyssey number first. I'll put that down as well. But you obviously have a lot of wisdom, and I value that you've shared it. I'm sure other people will.
Thank you.
So thank you so much for your time.
No worries.
And I will just end recording now. But we'll see you again soon, hopefully.
Perfect. Sounds great. See you.
Ciao.